He's setting up right.
Yeah.
Good.
Job of pitching is to upset timing, isn't
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Couldn't
Well,
get a better finish.
it was exciting.
Yeah. Yeah.
So thank you all for being here. My name is Bill, and I've been a reporter and a photographer in the newspaper business for about 16 years now. And I've been a vintage baseball player since 2013. And I think it's kind of cool to be able to do both because I've developed some pretty different ideas on ease of getting the message out there to the media. Now, certainly social media is a terrific tool, as any tool is for getting the word out. But I still think there's a value in connecting with your local newspaper or radio station. So a lot of my suggestions are based on ease of getting the message out there. Tips and suggestions on how to tell newspapers, radio stations, and television stations about your team and your game so even more people can take part in the phenomenon that is vintage baseball. Learn how to and when to write short stories and briefs to get the word out about your team, not only to expand participation but also to increase fandom. Learn how to develop relationships with sports editors and sports reporters. The relationships aren't really that difficult to develop, in all honesty. Newspapers, like many businesses, we're at a point where we have so few people doing so many things. We can only write so many stories. We can only be in so many places at once. By you writing up something about your team, sending it in to us, sending in pictures, you're doing us a favor. You're doing your community a favor. And perhaps when one of us newspaper people has the time to get out there, we see what excites you all about the vintage game. Really, it's important, I think, to expect that what you have that's going on is worth people knowing about. Now, we don't know how many people, 1 out of 10, 2 out of 10, that doesn't matter. But for anybody who shows up to the game and they showed up because they read something about it in the paper, I guess your time is worth it. Now, we know that to grow the game, it isn't just to have people out on the field playing. If you're lucky enough to have an umpire, or a scorekeeper, or fans who dress up or don't dress up, just the more people out there, it's more lively. If you're driving down the road and you see something going on, you see some people on the field, well, that's kind of neat. But imagine you're driving down the road and you see some folks playing ball, and then you see people around there cheering them. I bet you're even more interested. So don't forget that when you send something out like this, not everybody's necessarily going to be thinking, hey, I can play third base. Maybe some of them just want to sit back and watch baseball in a different way.
Here we go. Hopefully that's recording. I brought a few more guests in. Is it okay?
That's awesome.
Here, he's got handouts.
Got it.
Yeah, I've got handouts.
This is a different one. Here. Okay.
Thanks, Gary. For those of you who don't know, this is Gary, our president. Passing out the paper.
This is talk.
Well, there are several different ways for you to get it out to your local newspapers. When you open up, first off, I would really recommend that you pick up a copy of your local newspaper and see what they include in it and see what they don't include in it. I think we would all agree that vintage baseball is an awesome thing, but not just as a sport. I mean, it's got a historical component too, and it's a leisure component. I mean, the word pastoral's been used more than a few times for what we do. I've had, on one team that I coached or managed in Arizona, my catcher was 81, my second baseman was 85, and we had teenagers in the outfield. So, really and truly, it's anybody can play. We all want to win at everything we do, but that's not the be-all and the end-all that is vintage baseball. So, getting back to the certain areas, the ways that you can get the message out, well, one is regarding calendar items and little news briefs. Some newspapers have little calendar sections. They don't just have the date of an event, but they might have 50 to 100 words. April the 8th. The Cincinnati Red Stockings of 1869 faced the Peoria Excelsiors in a vintage baseball match. Game time is 2 p.m. at Heritage Field, and then the address. Tell people what to bring. If it's an open field and they need to bring a foldable chair if they want to sit down, or blankets, tell them that. Doesn't take too many words. It's going to be in a softball field because sometimes that's just the only field that's available. Well, then you don't have to worry about that so much, but tell people to bring their water, bring their seats if they need to, bring their sunscreen if it's a sunny day, but just provide little bits of information that are kind of helpful. I mean, I know that most people have seen baseball before, but I bet you not too many people really think about any of those little things. So again, calendar items and briefs, that's one thing. Writing a story, maybe 300-400 words, that's another possibility. There's classified advertising, and then there's letters to the editor and commentaries. So I'll go into each of these in detail. Regarding calendar items and news briefs, again, those are going to be pretty short. So give us something that's kind of concise, 100 words, no more. In my newspaper, we have a calendar section. We try to use a good half page of the newspaper each week for calendar items. And what we can't get in print, it all goes up online. So that's kind of one benefit of a newspaper, that with the online, there's no limit to space. If I've got 75 calendar items on my document, I can get all 75 online, even if only say 28 of them get into print. I do get them all up every week, guaranteed. But I also ask that you be brief. And why? Because if we are talking about the ones in print, I don't want to just run 4 in the week because somebody was incredibly verbose. That's not fair. So I really want to get as much out there as possible, as many items. And I know that my newspaper can't be the only newspaper that still includes calendar items, little write-ups about this event, whether it be an arts and crafts festival or a sing-along at the senior center. So again, try to keep them brief, no more than 100 words, and most newspapers will run them repeatedly before the event. Because again, we're small newspaper staffs. I've got a 3-person newsroom, including me. As the editor of my paper, I'm also a reporter. So we are plenty busy, and we want to be everywhere when we can. So you're really doing us a favor. You're doing the community a favor by getting out information to us. And there's no such thing as sending it in too soon. There sure as heck is something such as getting it in too late. That doesn't do anybody any good. Because really, there's 2 types of stories that are going to go to a newspaper. Something before the event and something after the event. Now I realize we want to tell people about what happened at the event, of course, too. But most importantly, if you want people to come out, you want to tell them before. Because the worst thing in the world you want to tell them other than is, hey guys, look what you missed. Which is really what a follow-up story is after the event. Look what you missed. And yeah, you could say, well, and then the next one is on such and such a date, but always tell people in as much advance notice as possible. If you know 1 month before the event, plan it. Because folks have families and they do other things, and people really do need to put time aside. Back to those calendar items, if you look at the second page, I give you an example of a calendar item, of a short news brief. Basic information about the event, the time is always important. If there's an admission, whether you guys are charging admission or whether there's a parking fee where you all are going to be, good to let people know about that sort of thing. If there's for more information, if somebody's a contact person, if you're the contact person for your team, make sure you include your name and your phone number and your email, because rest assured people will ask questions. So I'm not saying leave out important information, but keep your information concise, keep it succinct, and give people a chance to follow up with you if they have more questions. Regarding the story, your sports editor, your editor, the people who accept community copy, they'll tell you what your space limit is. But I know I try to keep things at about 300 words, and I urge you to send in
Oh, is that
pictures.
his?
Some business cards in
Is
there?
that his?
Sorry.
I urge you to send in pictures as well. Every story that we get up in our newspaper,
He
we
thought
put
it
up
was
on
mine and got it for me. It's yours.
And more often than not, if people are going to read something on the web, it's because a picture attracted them to the story. Odds are good, if you're going online and you see a bunch of gray and you see no pictures, you may not click on it. You likely won't. But if you see a picture, darn likely you're going to. And I'm not expecting you to be Ansel Adams. I just expect you to send in a picture. Because again, this is outreach. It's really free advertising too. Thanks. And send in plenty of pictures. Send in high resolution, 300 pixels an inch, at least 5x7. Much smaller than that, it'll look fine online, but in print it'll look like a postage stamp. And it's not going to do any of us any bit of good, certainly not you all, if the picture in print is really tiny. I like the option to run it large. So even if you give me only 300 words for a story, if you give me 2 or 3 pictures, terrific. If I do that particular week have a big space to fill, I can run the pictures big. Being a photographer first and foremost, I love lots of pictures and I love big pictures, good quality ones. Showing people having a good time, whether they be an action shot, people in the crowd cheering. Try not to send the everybody stand around with the camera and grin picture. Those pictures are boring. If it's the only picture you send me, don't send me that one. If you're gonna send me a few pictures, bless you. If you're gonna send a few pictures to show the feel of what's going on, then it's okay to have the group shot. But please don't send that to be the only one, because most newspapers really wanna show people what's going on. We wanna see the batter swing and the pitcher pitching. We wanna see the fans cheering and people running the bases and catching the ball. Those things bring joy and they bring information. The picture of people grinning at the camera, that doesn't tell us much. So, I'm not saying we'll never use that one, but if it's the only picture, don't send that one as the only picture. Give us something exciting. So yeah, best to keep your stories at no more than about 300 words. Space is limited, so be concise, not verbose. Please be interesting. You have an interesting story above and beyond the game. Is there a particularly young or particularly old player taking part in the games? Like my 81-year-old catcher and my 85-year-old second baseman. So think about that for a moment here. We all want to win when we play ball, and we all have a certain degree of competitiveness, but I think we would all agree it probably would be unsportsmanlike to be stealing bags on an 81-year-old catcher and an 85-year-old second baseman. It just doesn't matter a point. But those are still interesting stories to tell. Who are the people out on the field? Is it a special event or a tournament? Is there like an annual festival that goes on in your community? And is this part of the activity that goes on? Well, tell us about that, please. Is it a charity event? If so, we sure as heck want to know where money is going. That's a big deal. There's a car club that I've done a few stories on what they do where I live up in Washington now. And they donate all of their proceeds from their car shows every year. All their proceeds. They donate them to feeding centers, like where folks go and get a free meal or a box of food. They donate them to homeless shelters. If y'all are doing anything, I'm not saying you should do anything like that or that you shouldn't, but if you do, definitely get the word out. Tell people what's going on. Let them know that if there's something more going on than folks playing ball, tell them that as well. Are you looking for players? Are you looking for umpires, scorekeepers, anybody to further the vintage experience? Please write that when you're communicating to us, when you're communicating to your community. Again, with the news briefs, always include who is playing. This team is playing that team. Include the date, the time, the location, if the cost applies, what to bring, any contact information, a website or a Facebook page. Give people a chance to follow along. And if all of that is brand new, if you guys are a brand new team, then say that too. We are a brand new team looking for players and for fans. Classified advertising, also a real big deal. Not my first choice, but I do it sometimes. I get a free ad working at the paper, but classified ads are pretty darned inexpensive, a lot less expensive than the big display ads. Keep those tremendously brief. They generally count per the word. And you'll do that kind of like a little brief reel. Say something maybe like come play 1860 era baseball. April 1st, 2nd at Warren Ballpark in Bisbee. We will provide equipment. Call so-and-so at such and such number or email such and such for more information. There's no such way as a bad way to get the word out. Use anything that you are capable of doing. And I imagine that there's maybe various people on your team with different talents. Yeah, you may manage your team, but maybe you've got a guy on your team works in public relations or does some degree of writing for a living, have him help you out. Don't feel like you need to do it all yourself, but if you do, it's really not that difficult either. Because again, most newspapers are really appreciative of courtesy submissions. Folks writing in something, sending it into their paper, wanting to be part of that communication process. You're not hurting us, you're helping us. Probably my favorite one is the letters to the editor and writing and commentaries. Because you go to a newspaper's opinion section, more often than not, you see somebody complaining about something. And most people in this world are trying to do good things. And this is one of those good things that we're trying to do. Write a letter to the editor to your newspaper. Write it following the game. You want to thank the folks who are the fans of this team and that team for coming out and watching us play ball. You want to thank the fans. You want to thank the scorekeeper. You want to thank the little kid for no matter what, no matter how far the ball was hit foul, he went and chased after every one of them. People appreciate that. People will feel like they matter to you. And they'll come back and they'll invite their friends. And you are going to grow some fans for a long time. And that little kid chasing after the ball, maybe another 5 or 7 years, he's your second baseman. Who knows? Because let's be honest, nobody yet in this world has ever made it out without dying at some point. So we want this industry, this vintage baseball movement, to last way beyond us. That would be really excellent if it could. So there are so many different ways of getting the message out. Again, by writing little short pieces, by writing a full story, classifieds, writing in some sort of a letter or a commentary, thanking people, telling people about the vintage baseball industry, about what goes on in your community. Newspapers oftentimes also affect a full commentary. Generally, you send in a little mugshot, and you're given more words to use. Who knows? Maybe your newspaper's got a space to fill where they would appreciate a monthly column about something historic. You don't know these things if you don't ask. So, as baseball did a lot of what-ifing to get from 1860 to where we are today, y'all do as much what-ifing as you can to think about what might be a fun way of getting the message out, to getting more people out to your games. Nothing is a bad idea. Absolutely nothing is a bad idea. But again, photographs also with your submissions are huge. We want to be able to see the excitement. We want to be able to see what's going on the field. I realize that a lot of folks in the Midwest, there's loads of teams out here. So maybe vintage baseball isn't so much the secret that it is in the Pacific Northwest as I'm trying to build a team. But still, just because you know that the majority of people around here may be familiar with vintage baseball, doesn't mean somebody's not moving to the area for the first time. And you want everybody to be interested, you want everybody to be aware of what you're doing. So, when you communicate, always communicate with a fresh bounce to your voice, as if what you're doing is something that somebody may read and learn about for the very first time. Don't take for granted that what you're doing is something that everybody knows about. Please.
One thing you might think about too is, having been in media myself, is with the new media that's out there, Facebook and Twitter and everything that's out there, is do a little cross promoting as well, and say on your Facebook page, hey, check out the, whatever the name of your local newspaper is, because we're putting updates about our, they're helping us, help them out a little bit, or, hey, on W whatever, they mention our games, so tune into them, because those media outlets would appreciate that kind of traffic as
Absolutely.
well.
For example, for those of you who have an iPhone, y'all who have a Android and it does differently, you let me know, but it's very easy to snap a screenshot of your picture. So you do that and attach that to your Facebook or your Twitter page, that screen capture. That screen capture perhaps is the front page of your local newspaper if the story made the front page, or inside, or wherever it is. Snap a picture of that. Because most newspapers, they also have an e-edition. Flip through every single page. You can find it digitally. Shoot a picture of it, smack it up on your Facebook or Twitter page, say hum a few bars, and show people, as you said, come take a look at our local newspaper.
I run our Facebook page for our vintage team, and I'm always surprised by the people who follow our page, like from Arizona, California. You know, we're 1869, and I'm the one who puts our schedule on the page. I usually manage everything on there, and just the random follows we get. Again,
Definitely,
from
yes.
not even, like you said, a lot of teams in the Midwest, but like I said, we're getting people from the West Coast. I don't know if they're originally from Cincinnati, the Midwest, but I don't think so. They somehow found us and they follow us, so it's interesting.
Well, I follow you guys, and I played 8 years in Arizona before we
Okay.
moved to Washington 2 years ago. But my kid lived in Columbus for 10 years
Okay.
and just moved out to Seattle. I did a search just because I was looking for vintage baseball. Anybody and everybody playing vintage baseball, I wanted to follow because I wanted to see what y'all were doing. And all communication's good. It's an opportunity to learn, to see what you're doing,
Mm-hmm.
see what another team is doing, and just figure out what does it take for my team to succeed. And I imagine if everybody's doing that sort of thing, we all learn something different, right?
Yeah.
I'm here for loads of questions. My presentation really was meant to be simple and more dialogue.
Right,
Okay.
okay.
So, those of you in this room here, and those of you who are with teams, are you the captains or the coaches of your teams? Are you the ones responsible for the communications leg of getting the word out?
Yeah, pretty much so.
Okay. And so which methods have you been using?
Something new that we've been doing, or outlets, is our area. Many communities have what they call economic development councils, or some entity within their community that does something like that, and they've been a very good conduit for us to get the message out to various other audiences. Because regretfully, I'm sure Bill will admit this too, local newspaper subscriptions have gone down, and there's not that audience that's out there anymore for traditional media outlets. So you got to think of different things to do, different things to talk to. And like I said, our Economic Development Corporation puts out a weekly e-newsletter that comes out that just lists events that are going on in the community, and we make sure that we're there when our games are, and where they can be, kind of like a calendar item on this.
You're right, because I would never say that the newspaper is the only way to get the word out. I happen to work at a newspaper, and I still see great value in them, but it's not the only way. As you brought up one point, kind of indirectly, go to your city council, attend a meeting. You get 3 minutes on them at the diocese to give your spiel. Invite folks out to come out to the vintage baseball game.
Yeah. Or if your city has a recreation department or something like that.
Your local school board too. You certainly want young people to get involved, right? So why not go to the school board and put your 3 minutes in? Whether you're not, you've got a kid in the school district or even a grandkid in the school district. Get the word out, because obviously this will continue to grow, this will continue to thrive and survive with young blood coming in. So get the word out. Bob?
Yeah, we've been around 31 years now in Rock Springs Ground Squirrels in Decatur, Illinois. So we've sort of seen an interesting evolution of things. We really got a lot of traction early on, and as long as you've got a team, you can do this. You can make your own games by going to community festivals and say, we'll come in and you guys, get and we've got a lot of, in fact, over the years, we generated some players by that. Going to service clubs, and when we're asked. We've also done a couple of things with schools. Somebody will hear us about it and they'll say, well, we're gonna have something at our school, and the challenge there was when guys were working, they couldn't say, okay, I'll be in Ramsey at 2 o'clock on Wednesday afternoon. Well, we had enough people started to retire, we could do that. But we've really seen an evolution, and we had once a pretty strong daily indicator, and it's not so strong anymore because they never did much for us. It was like if we got one thing a year, but we had a weekly there, which is sort of unusual in a town its size at that time. And he just gives us space. So we started writing game stories, you know, and we don't, but they're written in more of a, certainly that the game is in there, but it also makes allusions to the, you know, the friendship and whenever possible, humor. You know, something funny happens, or maybe it doesn't happen, but you sort of make it up. Shh, don't tell anybody that. But his readership is limited because it's mostly people older than me. But some of them come out to the games. You don't get much players. But several years ago, when Facebook came along, and he didn't have any objection, we just published the stories on Facebook. And so there's probably more people that follow our team or know about our team on Facebook, because then Gary turns around and publishes it on the Midwest Vintage Baseball site, and so it goes all over. So that's one way that you can, the downside is you gotta have somebody keep score every game, and you gotta have somebody write, because there's enough, you know, stuff in there that, you know, you wanna know how the runs happen and, you know, that sort of stuff. And if somebody had a really good game and, you know, hit a couple home runs, but, so you need the score sheet for that. And so sometimes that means the guy that's writing the story and trying to play in the game also has to keep the score sheet, you know, which is challenging. Because not all teams in our area now used to have scores, but now, in addition to not having scores, we also don't have umpires a lot. It's self-umpire. But the bottom line is, I guess, you know, try and think about it, as you guys have already said, being creative. You know, get a product, and then there's many channels you can put that product into that people are going to see, and you can hope for the best.
Exactly. One thing that you brought up about places to play games. Where I lived in Arizona, there was a VA hospital not too far away. And we had made plans to play a game there, and it didn't happen, COVID and a few other reasons. But that particular VA had a large stretch of grass where a game could be played. So I don't know if there's anything like that anywhere where you all are, where you could be playing in front of people who otherwise couldn't get out somewhere. But that's also a possibility for getting the word out. And that's totally one of those things that you would want to promote. Any act of charity, people are going to want to know about. And in such a contentious world that we've been in lately, anything positive that can bring joy to people, definitely want to make sure you promote it. Something that a newspaper would love to hear about, your local radio station. If you work with any vendors who sell equipment, make equipment, invite them out to your games. If you have somebody who comes out to the game semi-regularly, have them sing the national anthem before the game, or take me out to the ball game. I mean, when it comes to authenticity, we all do our very best. But the truth of the matter is nobody in this room is remotely close enough to being young enough to playing baseball when it was played in 1860. So, like we were talking about over breakfast, it's like, and not to be flippant or disrespectful, it's almost like the movie Cocoon. Older people doing young things. And there's nothing wrong with that. But there are still certain limits. I mean, we do our darndest to be authentic, but I'm still not 20 anymore. I can only do so much. We do our darndest. But in the spirit of doing our darndest, we are human. And those are some of those things that are really actually a joy. Because yeah, anybody 20 years old go out and play ball, of course. But don't you think it's really awesome that people our age are caring about something that used to be only cared about by children? And there should be joy in that. And getting it on our social media and to our newspapers and our radio stations. Maybe your community has a television station that has an interest in that. Just before COVID, there was a news radio or TV station in the Phoenix area that had done some TV interviews with us, our group of teams, that they were working on putting together broadcast that ended up getting squashed because of COVID. But, you know, there's so many different ways of getting the word out, and really they're all good, I think.
I think one thing that I would do more of that we did, and I know Jim is from Danville's been involved in this too. You know, it's important to have your own field, you know, and make it as accurate as you can. But don't be afraid of going in to a city park that has a high amount of traffic and playing a game there because you're playing on a skinned infield or whatever, you have a backstop. Because I know that we did it in Bloomington with the Danville team once, and you know, there was just it was a city park, it was located in there was a lot of traffic, it was next to the zoo, so there were people constantly coming by. I think the first game we played in Danville was at Lincoln Park, which is also in the middle of town. Again, there was an old house tour or something going on that day. There was some sort of festival. So there were people all over the place, and they would come by. And you get that a lot with those festival games. So, you know, I would never turn down a chance to play if you have a minor league team or something that wants you to come in, and so what, you're playing on turf and you can only play 3 innings and it's gonna be 2 hours before the game. Well, do it, because there may be somebody in the stands that's gonna see that and say, well, wait a minute, you know, maybe I wanna do that, or hey, I'm gonna tell so-and-so and we're gonna have them play for our sweet corn festival or something like that. You know, just get out there.
And promote the heck out of it.
Yeah, because every time you put on the uniform and go out there and play, that's a living promotion.
How many communities around here have parades?
Oh, yeah.
Members of your team actually
Yeah.
suit up
Do
and
that.
walk the parade, you know, with the bats over the shoulder and like a parade entry. We had that a couple of times at a parade that was in my community in Arizona.
Funny tangent on that. Our team was in the Labor Day parade down in Westville, which is a community short of us. And our entry, we were right behind the belly dancing club.
Did you all
belly dance down with your guys?
Only in Westville, yeah.
So either people noticed us a lot or we were totally mixed as we went the route. But,
Is there a large difference in age between them?
And dress.
Yeah.
Better behind the belly dancers than the llamas.
Yeah, the horses. Yeah, the horses, yeah.
Or horses,
We
yeah.
were in
That's a good point.
Twin Falls in like Cleveland, and they had a nice parade, but you know, a mile or so long, pretty nice parade. We're behind the llamas, so you had to watch where you're stepping all the way.
So when you're getting the word out to the newspapers, I mean, there's so many different areas. You could submit to a sports reporter, or perhaps invite a sports reporter to come out to an event. You could submit copy to the sports editor. You could submit it to the editor-in-chief. Again, because vintage baseball isn't just sport. There's so much more to it than that. There's a human interest component much of the time. And paper I worked at in Arizona, we a few times had vintage baseball pieces on the front page of our newspaper, not just on the front of the sports page. So,
Just on real parades, the Muffins were just in the Findlay Market Parade, opening, the Reds, you know, have a big parade opening day, and starts at Findlay Market. Jim's been in this many times. What do you say, 1.5 miles or something like that?
2 miles.
So whatever it is, it's a nice parade, and there's all kind of units, 100 more, you know, bands and everything. And so Cincinnati Red Stockings have invited the Muffins to march with them and that's a tremendous, I mean, we're talking huge crowds. I mean,
Yeah.
the whole downtown is full.
good.
So talk about exposure, you know, for the team, it's just great.
Were you there Thursday?
Hmm?
Were you there Thursday?
I wasn't in it this year.
Okay.
This
Okay.
year, the
That's
Ohio
right, you walked me
History,
around. You had your own.
Yes.
the
Yeah.
Ohio History
That's right.
Connection
Yes.
Yeah.
entered it.
Okay.
And unfortunately, we saw the videotape of it, and the organization that was right in front of us what was it, something
was
about
the-
beards, it was a
yes,
beard
the-
contest?
bearded barons.
Yeah. So anyhow, they got to interviewing these guys that had the beards.
Guy had a mustache out to
Yeah.
here, you know,
Oh,
so
yeah.
the
He had grown it for
interviewer
8 years.
concentrates on this mustache guy, and meanwhile, the muffins are going. So when it comes back on, they say, oh, there's a beautiful beer can, and the high school band coming. So they missed the whole
Yeah.
Ohio History Connection unit and the muffins, so.
But
I'm
there was
home
thousands
trying
of
to
people
see it,
all
and
over
it
the road.
wasn't there.
Yeah, so you
Yes.
get,
It vanished.
Yeah.
Do any of you all shoot video on your phones?
But
Sometimes,
Yeah, we
Video,
have
do
some
any of you
rarely.
shoot video, rarely?
Rarely.
We do.
sometimes.
Yeah, there's,
Yeah.
usually somebody does at least a snippet every game,
Okay.
sometimes more.
A funny one.
It also doesn't hurt to send short videos of the vintage baseball to the newspapers. Remember, our websites are capable of showing more than just the printed word and still images. And if you have an iPhone, iMovie is a really awesome free tool to create movies, to assemble 15 and 20-second video clips together. I make 4-minute, 5-minute videos semi-regularly from little clips and send them and put them in our newspaper to go with stories. It's not difficult. Okay, so I guess trick question here. I don't think it's a trick question, but some people do. When you shoot a video, how do you hold your camera? How do you hold your phone? You don't hold it vertically.
No.
You know why? Is your television video television vertical? No, of course not. I like to joke that the reason why TikTok exists is for people who don't know how to shoot a video. The purpose of video is it looks like this. You go to the movies and it's horizontal, panoramic.
Okay.
Shoot your videos like that. Because in that rectangle, if you shoot me a vertical, it's going to be awfully tiny and a whole lot of wasted space. So why would you purposely waste space? And it doesn't need to be all that complicated. I mean, we're not bless you, we're not Hitchcock. We're just making fun little videos to show the love of vintage baseball. It doesn't hurt to send those into us too. I mean, if you know how to put together something on iMovie, all the better. But if not, if you just have a little 30-second clip that you want to send to your newspaper, go for it, please. There's the word, there's the picture, there's the video. There's so many different ways we can get the word out there. It's really not that complicated. You're thinking about all the things that maybe you would like to see in the newspaper. And how would you do it? And it's your newspaper person's responsibility to tighten up the verbiage if necessary. I don't expect you to be a writer for a living. It's my job. Keep it simple. Provide the information that you know. That if you were to read that story and you knew nothing about it, what would you need to know so you could go and enjoy it? And if you don't have all the answers, make sure you include, for more information, contact so-and-so at such and such. People will ask questions that will want to know more. So, anyway, that's how I try to do things for my job. And I often, regularly encourage people to submit things to us. They send in commentaries, they send in loads of letters, they send in little news pieces. Because newspapers appreciate the fact that they can't do everything and you're really making it a little easier. And for all you know, you might give them such an awesome idea that maybe they'll come out there and start covering it.
How many teams do you have going up in Washington, the state of Washington now?
My team will be the first.
Oh,
The way I did some research before I moved up to Washington 2 years ago. The great-great-great-grandson of Alexander Joy Cartwright lived in the Seattle area about 2006-07 or so. Tried to put together a team, and you see it on Facebook, and then you see nothing after about 2008. His Facebook page went dormant. I think he may have died at a young age, best as I can tell.
so you're gonna have to be creative getting opponents. So,
Absolutely.
We play a lot of festivals, and that might be a good place to start.
I've considered reaching out to the local police and fire departments to see if they want to play ball against us. Thought about reaching out to the local high school their baseball team to see if they wanted to play ball. Maybe not the varsity team, maybe the junior varsity. But
Maybe the coaches.
Well,
Yeah, go for the coaches, go for the coaching, all the gym teachers, right?
But see, not because I don't wanna get my butt kicked, but because I don't think the high schoolers are gonna have enough of an appreciation of I imagine a younger kid might find it more exciting. But, go ahead, please.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you,
No.
when you were done. So I got kind of 2 points to that, so, I've been playing games now for like 16 years, and my 24-year-old son just joined us 3 years ago, and he's loving it.
Sweet.
So we tried to bring on another kid last year, trying to get young, we got some older players on our team. And the one kid that came out was he pitched in college. And he played the one game, and he's like, he didn't like it. He's like, there's no strategy to it. But he was a pitcher in college, he's like, there's no strategy to it. He didn't like it. So I think it's who you try to recruit.
Yeah.
So I guess it's how you look at it. But my son, he loves it.
It's not for
He's our
everybody.
center fielder, and he loves it. But this other kid from college, he didn't like it.
You know, he's already gone as far as he was gonna go.
Yeah.
I think there's also an attractiveness to catching the ball with your bare hands.
Yeah.
And I would think that if you're a young person and you're learning the game and you're using a glove, I would think that if you slow it down and catch it with your bare hands, that it may actually make you better at catching it with a glove.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Oh, yeah.
just based on that, I would find it to be an attractive thing to a kid young enough to be growing as a ball player and wise enough to appreciate that this is fundamentally something that will help you.
Well, back to your idea about high school, we played at one festival and they made up their team of high school seniors and their dads. They could not play unless their dads played.
Okay.
So that kind of made them not as good as you might think that they would be. But it made a good connection between dads and their sons.
Father-son game, that's
Yeah,
good.
so yeah, they had, I think 10 of their 14 players were dads and sons.
That's neat.
And they had a few other community players, so that was pretty successful idea.
Do many
Yeah.
of you all teams have ladies on your teams as well as guys?
We have a ladies team,
What's it called?
the Diamonds,
Yeah.
Ohio Village Diamonds.
Okay.
We're always
They
looking for
play,
more.
they play a game of the Hot Cup, don't they?
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Unfortunately, it's like a club match because we can't find any other ladies teams. to
Right.
play.
It's rare.
Yeah. There used to be one in Cincinnati,
It was.
probably before your time. Yeah.
Probably.
Jim?
Yeah, what were they
It
called?
was when they were,
What were they called? The ladies
the
team in
women's team in
Cincinnati.
Cincinnati.
You remember?
I don't know.
Okay.
Did you ever have one? We had one
Jim
in
was saying there was one in
Lady
Cincinnati.
Clodbusters
Clodbusters, yeah.
Yeah.
in
There's
Dayton, and we had a couple teams up in Michigan. Wally Dawes tried to have a women's team.
Yeah.
But they had a team,
The
Was this
Mules,
we were the Shamrocks?
the Mules tried to have a team called the Jennies,
Okay.
female mule. Katydids, we had, the Grasshoppers had Katydids for a while.
didn't they have one when they were the Shamrocks maybe?
A women's.
I'm not remembering
Pickford
that,
Bill.
I'm not
I can't
saying
remember.
they
Pickford Bill,
didn't, but
obviously,
I don't know. One, what I was gonna say is, one way we've had kind of some co-ed games, even though they're fun, but Jim's been real good on, when he's been scheduling all our games for the last 12, 15 years, whatever. But one that works very successfully would draw a crowd. As we go to play a community festival, whatever it is, get a variety of people on the other team. If you get a high school principal or coach, the youth minister, the DJ, kind of a broad spectrum, each of them brings their constituents that want to see them play.
You're right.
And then you get a pretty good crowd of people come from all over to see their guy, play, and then it makes a nice crowd for the game. We've had some really good, a dentist, people in the community that they all know, get them out there on the field and you've got a crowd.
Are there church leagues, softball going on in the Midwest, or is that the thing of the past?
No, it's still,
Yeah.
there's still churches.
There's still church league softball teams.
Any of them play vintage ball? Or any of them a possibility for a pickup opponent?
It's an idea.
Sure. because outreach is in so many ways. It's not just the written word and the picture, it's also just all these different ways of being able to find people to play against. Because they're all doing it for fun, and it's exciting.
Something that the Deep River grinders do after their games is they line up all the kids who are in the crowd and they shorten the bases and they just toss a ball and let the kids swing a bat and run the bases, and we all go out there, visitors and grinders like, we go out and play the field and goof around and mess around and let the kids run around the bases, and it just gets that whole generation involved in swinging a bat and running the bases.
And before I forget, I'm also the VBBA secretary. So the newsletter that you get every quarter, I'm the one who assembles the copy. I don't write it all by any stretch, but I do write some of it. And I constantly ask on the VBBA town hall page for people to send in stories. And I'll be working on a topic, and I'll ask people to, if you've got a story to share with us that goes with this, we'll send in your story. Don't hesitate. If you're sending in things to your local newspaper, send it into the newsletter as well. It might be a good way of also showing other folks reading the newsletter that, hey, you're doing it for the first time and you did a great job. And oh, you told a story, I never thought about that. So.
One other special game we do that draws a big crowd is playing on the State House lawn once a year against the legislators, okay? And
Do to them what they do to
this
you,
is
right?
amazing.
Wow.
It's amazing because the Republicans and Democrats, they all have fun together. It's incredible. And so we play them once a year. Sometimes it's some aides mixed in, but the main team are the legislators. They have fun, and one is a former student at Ohio State that's, like 45 years old now, and he's in the legislature, and he calls me up the next day, he says, that was so much fun. He said, you won't believe it, but the Republicans and Democrats in the hallway today are all laughing about, oh, you got a great hit last night, and, that's quite a catch, and all this, and they were like getting along. It was amazing. And then my wife and I were at another event about a week or two after that game, but another place, and my wife said, that woman over there, I think she was in that game. And so I went over to her, and she said, oh, that was the best thing. And he said, the Republicans, Democrats, all the next day, were all laughing at each other and having a great time and all that. So I said, send us to Washington.
There you go.
Yeah,
I'll go.
mention that, go to
I'll
a
go.
meeting and then they're all caucusing.
But it really was
Throw a
fun.
ball in the middle of
Yeah,
the.
the point I wanted to make was, the local TV comes out to that every time. We play at about 5 or 5:30 when the downtown offices are coming out, and we have a hot dog guy there, and the local TV stations are invariably come down there and film that game and put it on the 6 o'clock news. So we get a lot of exposure from that.
Right, so it's like when you're sending in when you're writing little briefs and when you're writing a full story and you're sending in pictures or video, don't just send it to your newspaper. There's your radio and their TV stations. They're not going to read them directly off. They may come out and do a story on y'all. Send a video to the TV station. Let them see what you're doing. Maybe they'll, wow, we could do something on this.
One game that we only tried once, and I don't know why we only did one, because it was a great success. On Father's Day, we would sponsor we sponsored at one time a Father and Child Day. So we had dads and sons, but also dads and daughters. And it was, a very low-key thing. I think we probably used an Incrediball or a rag ball or something. And because people are, especially, you have now so many, single parents or divorces and stuff like that. And so fathers were looking for something to do outside. It didn't cost anything. And it's still a mystery to me why we didn't do it again. There must have been some reason, but something, that, and that certainly drew some publicity because, whoever heard of the father-child baseball game, you know, on Father's Day, and, but just be creative, you know, there's other things, you know, we also played on the old Capitol State House lawn, in Springfield one year, and, so, just, you know, I guess the bottom line is just, you know, look at everything as how can we possibly use something to get the word out or spread the game or recruit some players.
Right, 'cause being part of these other events, piggybacking off them, you benefit off them, they're gonna benefit off you too. That just is another fun thing going on at this particular activity to draw in community members. Fish fry and vintage baseball, carnival and vintage baseball, parade and vintage baseball, Civil War reenactment and vintage baseball, you know, just communities do the most interesting of things, and what you guys are doing, what we are doing, is just as interesting. And like with anything, it's a niche. Not everybody's gonna like it. Those who will are really gonna like it. And plenty of opportunities to share the word. And yeah, sometimes you'll be writing in stories after the fact and telling people what happened, but never ever forget you can't give your newspaper people information too soon. Because if we are gonna plan to come out to your event, we need to know more than 3 days before. When it gets to Thursday and Friday and my reporter's already worked her hours for the week, I'm not gonna say, stop working right now, you're working on important things, go do that on Saturday. Folks need to be able to plan ahead like with anything. So, no such thing as too soon. Never get to the point where it's, look what you missed. Because you don't want people to miss.
Time. It's time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate y'all being here.